The Riverside Inn was decorated beautifully for Thanksgiving. Gold and burgundy linens covered the tables and through the tall windows. The Willamette River reflected the late afternoon sun. I'd been surprised when my daughter Linda suggested hosting our family Thanksgiving at a restaurant instead of at home. But she'd insisted. "Mom, you've hosted for 40 years. Let someone else do the work for once. Besides, the Riverside has a gorgeous private dining room. It'll be special." Special. That word should have been my first warning. I smoothed my burgundy sweater cashmere. A rare splurgeon looked around the private dining room. The whole family was here. My daughter Linda and her husband Robert, my son Gregory and his wife Diane, and my 3 grandchildren Marcus, at 19, his sister Sophia at 16, and Gregory's son Nathan at 14. 10 people around an elegant table, ostensibly gathered to give thanks. Linda had ordered wine for everyone, including a special glass for me. Napa Cabernet, Mom, your favorite. I remembered the wine sat in front of me, deep red and inviting. I'd been about to take my first sip when Marcus, seated beside me, suddenly stood up. "Grandma, we need to go. Right now." His hand closed around my purse on the back of my chair. His face had gone completely white. "Marcus, what? Don't ask questions, please. We're leaving." His voice was low and urgent, and his hand was shaking as he gripped my purse. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw raw fear in my grandson's eyes. "But everyone's here," I said, confused. "We're about to eat. That's the point." Marcus pulled me up from my chair with surprising strength. "They drugged your drink, Grandma. We have to go now." The room went silent. Linda's smile froze on her face. Gregory's hand tightened around his wine glass. Robert and Diane exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "Marcus, that's ridiculous," Linda said, her voice sharp. "Why would you say something so horrible?" "Because I heard you on the phone yesterday." Marcus was backing toward the door, pulling me with him. "I heard you tell Uncle Gregory that, once she drinks it, we'll have maybe 45 minutes before she's too confused to resist." The color drained from Linda's face. "You were eavesdropping on a private conversation about drugging my grandmother." Marcus's voice cracked. "I heard everything, Mom. The plan, the lawyers upstairs, the power of attorney documents, everything." Gregory stood up abruptly. "Marcus, you're being dramatic. Your mother and I were discussing. I know what you were discussing." Marcus had his phone out now, recording. "And Grandma's coming with me to the emergency room right now for a blood test." "A blood test?" Robert laughed, but it sounded forced. "For what? For whatever veterinary sedative Uncle Robert's friend from the clinic provided?" Marcus's voice was steady now, strengthened by righteousness. "The acepramazine you've been planning to use for 3 weeks." Robert's laugh died instantly. I looked at the wineglass in front of my place setting. I hadn't drunk a single drop. My hand had been inches from it when Marcus intervened. "There are lawyers upstairs waiting for you," Marcus said to me, still backing us toward the door. "Second floor, in a conference room. Mom booked it from 5:30 to 8 p.m. They have documents with your name on them, ready for your signature. That's enough." Linda's voice was shrill now. "Marcus, you're ruining everything with your paranoid fantasies." "Then let us leave," Marcus said. "If I'm wrong, Grandma will come back and we'll all laugh about it. But if I am right, and I am, then you just tried to poison a 68-year-old woman to steal her money." The room erupted. Gregory started toward us. Diane was shouting something about disrespectful children. Robert blocked the door. I found my voice. It came out cold and clear. The voice that had negotiated million-dollar real estate deals and stared down difficult clients for 40 years. "Move away from that door, Robert, or I'll scream loud enough for everyone in this restaurant to hear that you preventing me from leaving." "Mom, be reasonable," Linda began. "Reasonable? My grandson just told me you drugged my wine, that you have lawyers waiting upstairs to have me sign documents while I'm sedated. And instead of denying it, you're all trying to stop me from leaving." I stepped closer to the door. "That tells me everything I need to know." Sophia, my 16-year-old granddaughter, suddenly stood up from her seat. "I'm going with them." "Sophia, sit down," Linda hissed. "No." Sophia's voice was small but firm. "Marcus is right. I saw the texts between you and Uncle Gregory. I saw the spreadsheet on your laptop calculating how much Grandma's properties are worth. I didn't understand what it meant, but now I do." Nathan, the 14-year-old, looked between his parents and his grandmother with confusion and dawning horror. "Dad, what's going on?" "Nothing, son. Your cousin is being dramatic." "Then why did I see you meeting with lawyers last week?" Nathan's voice rose. "You told Mom you were at a work meeting, but I saw you coming out of that law office downtown. Simmons and Crane. I remember because I thought the name was cool." Gregory's face went from red to white. "Marcus, Sophia, Nathan, we're all leaving," I said clearly. "Anyone who tries to stop us will be explaining to the police why they prevented an elderly woman from leaving a restaurant." Robert stepped away from the door. We walked out of that private dining room with 6 pairs of eyes burning into our backs. Marcus kept his phone recording until we reached the parking lot. Sophia was crying silently. Nathan looked shell-shocked. "My car," I said, pulling out my keys. "I'll drive," Marcus said. "Your hands are shaking." He was right. I handed him the keys to my Lexus and climbed into the passenger seat. Sophia and Nathan crowded into the back. As Marcus started the engine, I looked back at the Riverside Inn through the second-floor windows. I could see movement in a conference room, people in suits, papers on a table. "They really did have lawyers waiting," I whispered. "I told you." Marcus's voice broke. "Grandma, if I hadn't heard Mom on the phone yesterday, if I hadn't warned you, you'd be up there right now, drugged and signing away everything you've built." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "You saved my life, Marcus. All 3 of you. You saw what was happening and you chose to protect me, even though it meant standing against your parents." "They're not my parents anymore," Marcus said, his jaw tight. "Not after this. People who drug their own mother aren't parents. They're criminals." Nathan was still processing. They were really going to drug Grandma. My dad was part of that. "Yes," Sophia said softly. "I've been finding evidence for weeks, but didn't understand what it meant. The weird phone calls that stopped when I walked in. The meetings with lawyers they lied about moms, searches for nursing homes for seniors, and power of attorney procedures. I thought they were worried about Grandma's health, but they were planning to have me institutionalized," I said. The pieces clicking together. Drug me, get power of attorney while I was sedated, then have me declared incompetent and locked away somewhere while they liquidated my assets. The car went silent. "Emmanuel Hospital," Marcus said, pulling out of the parking lot. "It's closest. We get a blood test, document everything, and then we call the police." My phone started ringing. "Linda." I didn't answer. It rang again. Gregory this time. I silenced it. A text from Linda appeared. "Mom, please don't overreact. We can explain everything. Come back and let's talk like adults." I showed it to Marcus. He snorted. "Adults don't drug their mothers." Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. Another text, this time from Robert. "You're being manipulated by a teenager. Marcus is mentally unstable. Ask yourself who you should trust, your family or a dramatic 19-year-old. Mentally unstable," Marcus read over my shoulder. "That's what they're going with. I'm the crazy one for not wanting them to poison you. They're setting up their defense," I said grimly. "If I do anything to stop them, they'll claim I'm senile and being manipulated by my grandchildren. That's why they needed the lawyers and the drugged wine to get my signature before I could think clearly." Nathan was Googling on his phone. "Grandma, a Cipramazine is a horse tranquilizer. It says here it's used for large animals and can cause respiratory problems in humans. They were going to give you horse drugs." Apparently my voice was calmer than I felt. "Drive faster, Marcus. We need that blood test before whatever was in that wine would have metabolized if I'd drunk it. To understand what my children tried to take from me that Thanksgiving, you need to understand where it came from. Every property, every asset, every dollar they viewed as their inheritance, it was built on 42 years of relentless work that started with nothing but ambition and love." I met Thomas Barrett when I was 24 years old, working as a receptionist at a small real estate office in Portland. He was 27, a contractor who came in to discuss a property listing. He had paint under his fingernails, wore work boots that had seen better days, and when he smiled, I knew I'd marry him. We were married 8 months later in a small ceremony that cost $300. Our honeymoon was 2 nights in Cannon Beach, and we spent most of it walking the shore and talking about our dreams. Thomas's dream was simple: buy property, renovate it himself, rent it out, and slowly build a portfolio. Real estate is how working people build real wealth. "Catherine," he'd say, studying property listings at our kitchen table, "one house at a time. One good decision at a time." We lived in a tiny apartment and saved every penny for 3 years. I took night classes in bookkeeping and property management. Thomas learned every trade he could: plumbing, electrical, carpentry, roofing. Thomas renovated it himself, working nights and weekends while keeping his contracting job during the day. I managed the tenant screening and finances. Within 18 months, we had enough equity to buy a second property. Linda was born when I was 27. Gregory came along 2 years later. I worked from home, managing our growing rental portfolio with a baby on my hip and a toddler at my feet. "You're teaching them the wrong values," Thomas's mother told me once. "Children need their father at dinner, not at construction sites." But Thomas and I were building something. By the time Linda started school, we owned 5 rental properties. By the time Gregory entered middle school, we had 9. I'll never forget when Linda was 13, coming home from her friend's house and asking, "Why don't we live in a nice house like Bethany's family? Why is our house so small?" We lived in a comfortable but modest 3-bedroom house that was completely paid off. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Because every extra dollar goes into our future, Thomas explained patiently, into properties that will generate income for decades. Someday you'll understand. But Linda never understood. Neither did Gregory. They were embarrassed by Thomas's calloused hands and secondhand truck. Embarrassed by my thrift store clothes and coupon clipping. Embarrassed by everything that made us who we were, hardworking people building something real. Linda got a marketing degree and went into corporate communications. Gregory became a financial advisor. Both of them moved into white-collar professional lives and made it clear they'd transcended their blue-collar upbringing. "You could retire, Dad," Gregory said at a family dinner when he was about 28. "You've got enough rental income. Why are you still doing manual labor?" "Because I like building things," Thomas said simply. "And because your mother and I have plans." Our plans included buying a commercial building downtown and converting it into office space. Included strategic investments in up-and-coming neighborhoods before they became expensive. Included careful, methodical property acquisitions that grew our portfolio to 22 rental properties by our 35th anniversary. We weren't wealthy by Portland standards, we were comfortable. The properties generated about $48,000 a month in rental income after all expenses. We lived modestly, saved aggressively, and reinvested wisely. "You're sitting on over $2 million, Linda said at Thomas's 65th birthday party. "And you still shop at Costco and drive a 10-year-old car." "Your grandmother survived the Depression," Thomas said. "She taught me that real security comes from assets, not spending." 4 years ago, Thomas started feeling unusually tired. The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt. Aggressive lung cancer, stage 4. He'd never smoked a day in his life, but it didn't matter. He died 7 months later on a gray October morning, holding my hand. "Protect it, Catherine," he whispered near the end. "Everything we built. Don't let them waste it." I knew exactly who them meant. Thomas's funeral was simple, dignified, and cost $9,500. Linda wanted me to spend $40,000 on an elaborate service at a fancy funeral home. Gregory suggested I buy family plots in an expensive cemetery appropriate for a successful family. I held the funeral Thomas wanted focused on the man he was, not the wealth he'd accumulated, and I heard what Linda and Gregory whispered to each other during the reception. "She'll have to sell now. She can't manage 22 properties alone. We need to talk to her about the estate. Make sure everything's structured properly. Mom's never been the business brain. Dad was the smart one." They were speaking loudly enough for me to hear, standing 15 feet away. They didn't care. For 4 years after Thomas died, I ran our real estate empire alone. I hired an excellent property manager to handle day-to-day maintenance, but I made every major decision. I reviewed every financial report. I approved every new tenant personally. I renegotiated every mortgage to get better rates. The portfolio was now worth approximately $2.6 million. 22 properties across Portland and Beaverton, all generating positive cash flow, minimal debt. Thomas and I had structured everything carefully. The properties were in a revocable living trust with me as trustee, designed to pass to our children after my death with minimal taxes. But Linda and Gregory didn't want to wait for nature to take its course. The comments at family dinners became more pointed. "Mom, you're 68. You've earned the right to enjoy your money instead of working yourself to death. You should sell everything and simplify. All those properties are too much stress at your age. Have you reviewed your estate plan recently? We should look at it together, make sure everything's in order." I deflected every time, made it clear the properties weren't for sale and my estate plan was my business. But I noticed things. Phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked in, exchanged looks between Linda and Gregory. Questions about my health, my memory, my ability to handle complex business matters. "Mom forgot she already told me that story," Linda said loudly to Gregory at Sunday dinner 2 months ago. I'd told no story twice, but I understood what she was doing, building a narrative of declining mental capacity. 6 months ago, the pressure intensified. Gregory came to my house with documents. "Mom, I've been consulting with my financial advisor. We think you should consider transferring some properties into our names now. For estate tax purposes, I had my attorney review the documents. They would have transferred 8 properties worth over $1.1 million to Gregory immediately, with no benefit to me. "This is a terrible idea, and I'm not signing anything," I told him. "You don't trust your own son to help you with your finances." "I do untrust anyone who brings me documents that separate me from my assets without my full understanding and consent." Gregory left angry, and the whisper campaign intensified. "She's getting paranoid," I heard Linda tell Robert. "Suspicious of everyone. It's sad. I wasn't paranoid, I was paying attention. I noticed meetings they lied about, Found evidence of them researching nursing homes and memory care facilities. Heard Linda on the phone saying things like, once we have control and and be able to fight it. 3 weeks ago, Linda called with the Thanksgiving invitation. Let's do something special this year, Mom. The Riverside Inn has a beautiful private dining room. My treat. Just family, intimate and meaningful. I'd agreed, unsuspecting grateful. My children still wanted to include me in their holiday celebrations. I didn't know that intimate meant private enough to drug you without witnesses. I didn't know that. Meaningful meant meaningful to our bank accounts once we steal your assets. But Marcus knew, Marcus heard, Marcus saved my life. Dr. James Preston was the emergency physician on duty at Emmanuel Hospital when we arrived at 5:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving evening. He looked about 50, with kind eyes and the efficient manner of someone who'd seen everything. You believe you were nearly drugged? He asked, after Marcus explained our situation. My grandson overheard my daughter planning to put espromazine in my wine, I said clearly. He warned me before I could drink it. I consumed nothing. But we need to know what they put in that glass, and we need documentation that I'm mentally competent. Because I suspect they're going to claim I'm senile and being manipulated by my grandchildren. Dr. Preston's expression shifted from professional concern to something harder. That's elder abuse, potentially attempted murder, depending on dosage and your health conditions. Which is why we're here, Marcus said. We need a blood test to check for espromazine or any other sedatives. And we need it documented that Grandma is completely mentally competent. We also need to call the police, Sophia added, her voice small but steady, because there are lawyers in a conference room at the Riverside Inn right now, waiting with documents they expected Grandma to sign while drugged. Dr. Preston stood. I'll order a comprehensive toxicology screen and a full cognitive assessment. And yes, you should absolutely call the police. If what you're telling me is true, this is a serious crime. While Dr. Preston drew my blood and ordered tests, Marcus called 911. I listened to him explain the situation to the dispatcher calmly, clearly with specific details about the private dining room, the lawyers upstairs, the overheard phone conversation about drugging me. They're sending detectives to the restaurant, Marcus said when he hung up. And they want to interview all of us here at the hospital. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Linda had called 14 times. Gregory, 9 times. Robert, 6 times. I didn't answer any of them. A text from Gregory appeared. Mom, this is insane. Marcus is mentally ill and you're letting him convince you of paranoid fantasies. Come back to the restaurant. Let's talk about this rationally. Another from Linda. I could. Unbelieve you, D. Trust a dramatic teenager over your own children. We've done nothing wrong. You're breaking my heart. They're setting up their defense, Nathan observed, reading over my shoulder. Making it sound like Marcus is crazy and you're being manipulated. Forward all of these to me, Marcus said. Every text, every voicemail. It's all evidence. Dr. Preston returned with a printed cognitive assessment form. Mrs. Barrett, I'm going to do a full evaluation of your mental status. This will become part of your medical record and can be used as evidence that you were fully competent at the time of this incident. He walked me through the mini mental state examination: date, location, memory tests, attention tests, language and spatial reasoning. I scored 30 out of 30, a perfect score. Mrs. Barrett's cognitive function is excellent, Dr. Preston said, documenting everything carefully. Memory is sharp, attention is focused, reasoning is clear. There is absolutely no evidence of dementia, confusion, or diminished capacity. She is fully capable of making her own decisions and managing her own affairs. Thank you, I said quietly. I suspect I'm going to need that documentation. You will, Dr. Preston agreed, because from what you've told me, your family was planning to claim you were incompetent to justify taking control of your assets. We waited in a private consultation room for the toxicology results. Marcus ordered food from the hospital cafeteria. None of us ate much, but Sophia and Nathan at least tried. At 7:23 p.m., 2 detectives arrived. Detective Sarah Winters was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Her partner, Detective Robert Chen, was younger, maybe 35, taking notes rapidly. Mrs. Barrett, I need you to tell me everything from the beginning, Detective Winters said, setting up a recording device. I walked them through the entire day: Linda's Thanksgiving invitation, the private dining room at the Riverside Inn, the wine that was specially ordered for me, Marcus's urgent warning, the panicked escape. I described the years of increasing pressure, the attempts to access my assets, the building narrative of my supposed incompetence. Marcus showed them screenshots of texts between Linda and Gregory discussing the plan and making sure the dosage is right. He showed them the spreadsheet calculating my property values and projected sale amounts. He played a voice recording he'd made the day before Linda on the phone with someone, saying, Once she drinks the wine, we'll have about 45 minutes. Robert's friend says the dosage is perfect. She'd be calm, compliant, and just confused enough to sign without really understanding what she's signing. Detective Winters's face darkened with each piece of evidence. Sophia showed them her phone, with photos of documents she'd found on Linda's laptop. Power of attorney forms, property transfer deeds, research on nursing homes and memory care facilities. With notes like lockdown ward and no visitors without authorization, they were planning to institutionalize her, Sophia said, her voice shaking. Get power of attorney while she was drugged, then have her committed to a memory care facility where they could control who saw her? That's kidnapping, Detective Chen said grimly, along with elder abuse, attempted poisoning, and fraud. Nathan pulled up his phone. I took pictures last week when I saw my dad coming out of Simmons and Crane Law office. I thought it was weird because he told my mom he was at a work meeting. Here, the timestamp it matches when he said he was supposed to be in Beaverton at a client presentation. Detective Winters reviewed all the evidence with methodical precision. This is one of the most premeditated cases of elder abuse I've seen. They've been planning this for months, maybe longer. The lawyers, the drugs, the documents, the institutional placement. This wasn't a desperate impulse. This was a calculated conspiracy. At 8:10 p.m., Dr. Preston returned with the toxicology report. Mrs. Barrett, your blood work shows trace amounts of S-permazine consistent with environmental exposure or secondary contact, but far below any therapeutic dose. Environmental exposure. Detective Winters leaned forward. It means the drug was present, probably in that wine glass, but Mrs. Barrett didn't actually consume it. There's just residual contact, perhaps from when she touched the glass or from aerosolized particles. If she'd drunk even half that glass, given her age and weight, the amount in her system would be significantly higher. How much higher? I asked. Based on these trace amounts and standard dosing, I'd estimate the glass contained enough S-permazine to sedate a 150-pound adult for 3 to 4 hours. In someone your age is 6, approximately 125 pounds, that dosage would cause significant confusion, impaired judgment, and docility. You'd be functional enough to follow simple directions, but too impaired to understand complex documents or resist suggestions. Enough to get her to sign power of attorney. Detective Chen asked. Absolutely. And dangerous. S-permazine isn't approved for human use. In elderly patients, it can cause cardiac arrhythmias, respiratory depression, and extreme drowsiness. If the dosage was miscalculated or if Mrs. Barrett had certain underlying conditions, it could have been fatal. The room went silent. They were willing to risk killing her, Marcus whispered. They were desperate, Detective Winters said, and desperate people do dangerous things. Mrs. Barrett, with your permission, we're going to the Riverside Inn right now to secure that private dining room and the conference room upstairs. We'll seize any documents, interview the lawyers if they're still there, and collect that wine glass for forensic analysis. You have my full permission, I said. We'll also need to interview your daughter and son, along with their spouses. This is going to get very public very quickly. Your family is going to claim you're being manipulated, that this is all a misunderstanding. Are you prepared for that? I am prepared for whatever it takes to protect myself and my assets from people who tried to drug me. Detective Winters nodded approvingly. We'll also need a warrant to search their homes and seize their phones and computers. Based on the evidence Marcus and Sophia have shown us, there's clearly electronic communication about this conspiracy. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Robert. You're making a huge mistake. We were planning a surprise for you. Those lawyers were there to help you set up a charitable foundation in Thomas's name. You've completely misunderstood everything. Please come back before you embarrass yourself further. I showed it to the detectives, a charitable foundation. Detective Winters's voice dripped with skepticism. Why would they need to drug you for that? They wouldn't, I said flatly. This is them scrambling for a cover story. Over the next 3 hours, Detective Winters's team executed their operation with impressive efficiency. Officers secured the private dining room at the Riverside Inn, collecting the wine glass with my name on the place card. Forensic analysis would later confirm it contained S-permazine at a concentration of 25 milligrams, enough to heavily sedate me for hours. They found the conference room on the second floor, where 2 attorneys were still waiting, looking increasingly nervous. The lawyers Harold Simmons and Thomas Crane initially claimed they were there for a routine estate planning session but couldn't explain why it was scheduled for Thanksgiving evening, why it required a private conference room, or why the documents were already filled out with my personal information and property details. When Detective Winters pointed out that their clients had just attempted to drug the client they were supposed to be helping, both lawyers immediately lawyered up themselves and refused to say anything else. Officers found the documents spread across the conference table. Durable power of attorney forms, granting Linda and Gregory complete control over my finances and medical decisions. Asterisk quit-claim deeds for 7 of my properties, transferring them into Linda and Gregory's names, a property sale agreement with a cash buyer named Cascade Properties LLC for $1.8 million, significantly below market value for 7 properties worth at least $2.20 million. Research documents on memory care facilities, including Golden Years Memory Center, with notes like private pay, no Medicare oversight, and limited family visitation. A handwritten timeline showing 5 o'clock medication administered, 5:30 to 6 o'clock observation period, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock signing session, 7 o'clock transport to facility, Detective Chen read aloud. They were planning to take you directly from the restaurant to a memory care lockdown facility. Can they do that? Sophia asked, horrified. Not legally, but if they had power of attorney and claimed you were a danger to yourself, they could petition for emergency psychiatric hold. By the time it got sorted out in court, they'd have sold your properties and hidden the money. Detective Winters' voice was hard. This was a very sophisticated plan. Search warrants were executed on Linda and Gregory's homes at 10:30 p.m. At Linda's house in Westlake Oswego, officers found a bottle of acetpromazine labeled from Westside Veterinary Clinic. Hidden in Robert's home office, email correspondence with Dr. Michelle Santos at the clinic, discussing obtaining medication for a family member's large dog. Except Linda's family had no dog. A burner phone with text messages to Gregory about the plan and timing, the dosage *. Financial records showing Linda and Robert were $340,000 in debt, with foreclosure proceedings initiated on their $800,000 home at Gregory's house in Lake Oswego. Officers found detailed spreadsheets calculating my property values, projected sale prices, and how he and Linda would split the proceeds. Email correspondence with the lawyers discussing incapacity proceedings and expedited guardianship. Research on acetpromazine dosing for geriatric patients. Financial records showing Gregory had been unemployed for 11 months, not 6, as I'd thought. Had blown through his retirement savings and was facing bankruptcy at 11:47 p.m. All 4 of them were arrested. Linda Walsh and Robert Walsh. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Attempted poisoning. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Attempted theft. Gregory Barrett and Diane Barrett. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Detective Winters called me at midnight. Mrs. Barrett, they're all in custody. Bail hearing is Monday morning. I want you to know the evidence against them is overwhelming. The drugged wine, the documents, the emails, the financial records, Marcus's voice recording, Sophia's photos. This is as close to an airtight case as I've ever seen. What happens now? Now you go home, get some rest, and prepare for them to claim you're being manipulated. They'll hire lawyers who'll argue you're mentally incompetent, that your grandchildren have turned you against your own family, that this is all a misunderstanding. We'll need you to be strong. I am strong, I said quietly. I've been strong for 68 years. I'm not stopping now. Marcus drove us home, me, Sophia, and Nathan, to my house in Northwest Portland, the house Thomas and I had paid off 20 years ago. The house my children had always considered too small, too modest, too embarrassing. The house that was mine, and would stay mine because 3 brave grandchildren had chosen to protect me instead of going along with their parents' plan. What happens to us? Nathan asked as we pulled into the driveway. My parents are in jail. I'm only 14. You're staying with me, I said immediately. All 3 of you for as long as you need. Marcus, Sophia, Nathan, you're my family now, the real kind, the kind that protects instead of prays. Sophia started crying. We're going to lose our parents. They're going to prison. You already lost your parents, Marcus said quietly. The moment they decided drugging Grandma was an acceptable solution to their money problems. The people in those jail cells, they're not the parents we thought we knew. Maybe they never were. We sat in my driveway for a long time, none of us quite ready to go inside and face the new reality we'd stepped into. My children were in jail, arrested for trying to drug me and steal everything I'd built with Thomas. My grandchildren had saved my life and lost their parents in the process. And somewhere in Portland, in a forensics lab, a wine glass was being tested that would prove beyond any doubt that my own daughter had tried to poison me on Thanksgiving. Some holidays, you're grateful for family. This Thanksgiving, I was grateful to be alive. The bail hearing on Monday morning was my first time seeing Linda and Gregory since they tried to drug me. They looked terrible, rumpled orange jumpsuits, exhaustion etched into their faces, but their eyes held no remorse, only rage. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and no tolerance for nonsense. The courtroom was packed. Apparently attempted poisoning of an elderly mother made for compelling public drama. The prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney James Franklin, was in his 40s, methodical and thorough. He laid out the case with devastating precision. Your Honor, these 4 defendants engaged in a months-long conspiracy to drug defraud and potentially kidnap a 68-year-old woman, the mother of 2 of the defendants, in order to steal assets worth approximately $2.6 million. The premeditation here is extraordinary. They obtained veterinary-grade sedatives illegally. They arranged for lawyers to be present with pre-filled legal documents. They researched memory care facilities with lockdown wards. They created a detailed timeline for administering the drug, obtaining signatures, and transporting the victim to an institutional setting where she could be isolated from anyone who might help her. Judge Morrison's face grew sterner with each detail. The only reason this plan failed was because the victim's 19-year-old grandson overheard the defendants discussing their plan and warned her minutes before she would have consumed the drugged wine. We have the wine glass with esprimazine. We have emails, texts, and recorded phone conversations discussing the conspiracy. We have the documents laid out in the conference room ready for signatures. We have financial records showing all 4 defendants were facing financial ruin and viewed the victim's assets as their solution. Linda's attorney, a slick-looking man named Martin Cross, stood up. Your Honor, my client maintains this is all an unfortunate misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Judge Morrison's voice could have cut glass. A esprimazine in a wine glass is a misunderstanding. My client had no knowledge of any drugs. She planned a Thanksgiving dinner to celebrate her mother. She arranged for estate planning attorneys as a thoughtful surprise at 5:30 p.m. on Thanksgiving, in a secret conference room, with documents already filled out. The judge wasn't buying it. Gregory's attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Rebecca Stone, tried next. Your Honor, we believe the victim, Mrs. Barrett, is being manipulated by her grandchildren, who have their own financial motivations. Mrs. Barrett scored 30 out of 30 on a cognitive assessment, performed by an emergency room physician. Ada Franklin interjected. Her mental competency is not in question, and her grandchildren have no financial motivation. They're not named in her current estate plan. They receive no money from her, and they've risked their own family relationships to protect her. They're teenagers with grudges. Against their parents, Stone tried their witnesses with evidence. Franklin shot back. Voice recordings, photographs of documents, text messages, all of which corroborate Mrs. Barrett's account and prove the defendant's intent. Judge Morrison held up a hand. I've heard enough. This court finds that all 4 defendants pose a significant flight risk given their financial desperation and the severity of charges. Bail is set at $300,000 for Linda Walsh and Gregory Barrett, $250,000 for Robert Walsh and Diane Barrett. Linda went white. Gregory's face turned purple with rage. Your Honor, that's excessive, Cross began. Attempted poisoning of an elderly family member? Conspiracy to commit fraud and kidnapping? I don't think it's excessive at all. Judge Morrison's voice was ice. And let me be clear, if any of these defendants make any attempt to contact the victim or the 3 grandchildren who are witnesses, I will revoke bail entirely. Do I make myself understood? Yes, Your Honor, the attorneys mumbled. As we left the courtroom, Gregory screamed at me from the defense table. You're going to regret this. You're destroying your own family over nothing. Marcus is manipulating you can't. You see that? What I see, I said clearly, turning to face him, is a son who was willing to drug me and lock me away to steal money he never earned. What I see is exactly what you are, Gregory. And it has nothing to do with manipulation. It has everything to do with your choices. Linda was crying. Mom, please, we were just trying to help you. Help me by putting horse tranquilizers in my wine. My voice was steady, though my hands were shaking. Linda, you had lawyers waiting to get my signature while I was sedated. You researched memory care facilities with lockdown wards. You planned to have me institutionalized. That's not help. That's theft and kidnapping. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. You don't understand. Linda's voice rose to a shriek. We're losing everything. Robert lost his job. I'm going to lose my house. We're drowning in D-TAND. You're sitting on millions doing nothing with it. You're 68 years old. You don't need all that money. We're your children. We should matter. And there it was. The truth, finally spoken out loud. You're right, I said quietly. You are my children. And you've shown me exactly how much that matters to you. It matters so much that you are willing to poison me, to have me declared incompetent, to lock me away in a facility where you controlled who could visit me. All so you could take money you didn't earn from a woman who loved you? We do love you, Gregory tried. No, you don't. You love my money. There's a difference. I turned to leave, then stopped. You could have come to me honestly, told me about your financial problems, asked for help creating a budget or finding solutions. But you didn't. because that would have required admitting your failures and accepting my boundaries. Instead, you decided I was an obstacle between you and your inheritance. Well, now that inheritance is gone, I'm changing my estate plan. Neither of you will get a penny. You can't do that, Linda screamed. Watch me. I walked out of the courtroom with Marcus, Sophia, and Nathan beside me. In the hallway, reporters crowded around us. The story had made the local news. Adult children, arrested for allegedly drugging elderly mother to steal real estate empire. I gave one brief statement, written with ADA Franklin's help. My children attempted to poison me in order to steal assets. I spent 42 years building with my late husband. They were stopped only because my grandson overheard their planning and warned me in time. I am fully mentally competent, as confirmed by medical professionals. I am pressing full charges. And I hope this case serves as a warning that elderly people are not obstacles to be removed when convenient. We are human beings with rights, dignity, and the absolute authority to control our own lives and assets. Thank you. I didn't take questions. Over the next week, the evidence kept mounting. Forensic analysis of the wine glass confirmed 25 milligrams of acepromazine, enough to heavily sedate me for 4 to 6 hours. Dr. Michelle Santos at Westside Veterinary Clinic admitted she'd provided the drug to Robert, believing his story about a family dog they had no dog. She was charged with illegal distribution of controlled substances. The lawyers, Simmons and Crane, faced investigation by the Oregon State Bar. Their defense that they were planning a surprise estate planning session fell apart when investigators found emails between them and Gregory explicitly discussing obtaining competent signatures while the client is chemically relaxed. Both lawyers were disbarred within a month. The burner phone found at Linda's house revealed even more damning evidence. Text messages between Linda and Gregory going back 8 months. Linda, she's got $2.6 million and lives like she's broke. It's insane. Gregory, we need to move before she spends it all on stupid charities or something. Linda, the memory care facility idea could work. Once we have POA, we just say she's a danger to herself. Gregory, nobody questions adult children putting their elderly parents in care. It's expected. Linda, and she'd be too confused to fight us. Perfect. Reading those texts, I felt physically sick. These were my children, people I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for. And they'd discussed institutionalizing me like I was livestock to be managed. Marcus, Sophia, and Nathan moved into my house full-time. Marcus took a leave from his community college to help me manage the properties and prepare for the trial. Sophia, a junior in high school, transferred to Lincoln High near my house. Nathan enrolled in a middle school program for advanced students. What about your parents? I asked them. Don't you want to at least talk to them? No, Marcus said flatly. They made their choice. We made ours. My mom sends letters, Sophia said quietly. I don't read them. Marcus does, to check if there's anything that might be evidence, but I don't want to know what she has to say. She tried to hurt you, Grandma. I can't forgive that. Nathan, the youngest at 14, struggled the most. I keep thinking maybe Dad didn't know how bad it was. Maybe he got pressured into it by Uncle Gregory. Marcus showed him the texts. Dad was in on it from the beginning. Nathan. He helped plan the drugging. He researched the memory care facilities. He calculated how much they'd make from selling Grandma's properties. He wasn't pressured. He was a full participant. Nathan cried for hours. I held him while he grieved for the father he'd thought he had. Why? He kept asking why would he do this to Grandma? She never did anything to hurt him because he wanted money more than he wanted integrity, I said softly. Some people, when they face hardship, find out what they're really made of. Your father found out he was made of greed and entitlement, not courage or character. But he's my dad, I know, sweetheart. And that makes it hurt even more. We settled into a rhythm. I taught Marcus about property management, collection, maintenance schedules, tenant relations, financial reporting. He was a natural, patient with tenants, and detail-oriented with paperwork. Sophia worked part-time at my property management office, learning the administrative side. She wanted to study business in college, maybe go into real estate herself. Nathan dove into his schoolwork with fierce determination. I'm getting straight A's, he announced. I'm going to college on scholarships. I'm never going to be like my dad, dependent on other people's money. Your dad wasn't. Dependent on other people's money? I corrected gently. He earned good money. He just spent more than he earned, and refused to adjust his lifestyle when his circumstances changed. That's different. It's still pathetic, Nathan said. And I'm never going to be pathetic. I updated my estate plan with Richard Morrison, my attorney. The new version explicitly excluded Linda, Gregory, Robert, and Diane. Instead, the properties would be held in trust for Marcus, Sophia, and Nathan, managed by Richard until they reached 30 years old. They'll challenge this, Richard warned. They'll claim you were mentally incompetent or that your grandchildren unduly influenced you. Let them try. I have medical documentation of my full competency. I have 3 grandchildren who saved my life, not manipulated me. And I have a very clear understanding of exactly what my children tried to do to me. Good, Richard said. Because this is going to be ugly. The trial began in March. 5 months after that Thanksgiving dinner I'd almost been drugged at. The prosecution had offered plea deals, reduced charges in exchange for guilty pleas, but Linda and Gregory refused. They were convinced they could make a jury understand their desperate circumstances. They were spectacularly wrong. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I sat in the courtroom every day with Marcus, Sophia, and Nathan beside me. ADA, James Franklin had prepared us thoroughly for what was coming. They're going to attack your character, he'd warned. Paint you as a greedy miser who hoarded wealth while your children struggled. They'll make it sound like they were justified in trying to take what was rightfully theirs. It's going to be ugly and personal. He wasn't exaggerating. Linda's attorney, Martin Cross, went after me viciously during cross-examination. Mrs. Barrett, you have $2.6 million in assets, correct? Approximately, yes. And you live in a house worth maybe $400,000. It's paid off and meets my needs. You drive a 12-year-old car. It runs perfectly well. You shop at discount stores for your clothing. I see no reason to waste money on expensive clothes. So you have millions, but you refuse to spend any of it. Cross's voice dripped with contempt. I spend money on what matters: property maintenance, insurance, taxes, living expenses. I donate to charity. I live within my means. But you refused to help your daughter when she was facing foreclosure? My daughter was facing foreclosure because she and her husband had accumulated $340,000 in debt while earning $200,000 a year. That's not a money problem. That's a spending problem. So you'd rather let your own daughter lose her home than help her? I'd rather let my adult daughter face the consequences of her financial decisions than enable her to continue spending recklessly. I kept my voice calm. I offered to help Linda create a budget. I offered to pay for financial counseling. I did not offer to simply hand her money to continue unsustainable behavior. Unsustainable behavior? Cross's voice rose. Mrs. Barrett, Linda is your daughter. Don't you believe in helping family? I believe in helping family in ways that actually help, not in ways that enable self-destructive behavior. And I certainly do believe family has the right to drug me and steal my assets when I decline to fund their lifestyle. The courtroom was dead silent. Gregory's attorney, Rebecca Stone, tried a different tack. Mrs. Barrett, isn't it true you've always had a difficult relationship with your children? No, we had a good relationship until they decided they were entitled to my money. Isn't it true they felt neglected growing up because you and your husband worked constantly? My husband and I worked hard to build a better life for our family. Our children never went without necessities. They had food, shelter, education, and love, but not expensive clothes or fancy vacations, correct? We taught them the value of money and work. Unfortunately, they rejected those values as adults. Or perhaps, Stone suggested, they resented being raised by parents who cared more about accumulating wealth than spending time with them. If that were true, I said calmly, they wouldn't have been so eager to steal that wealth. You can't simultaneously resent money and try to steal it. That shut her up. The prosecution was devastating. ADA Franklin presented the wine glass with 25 milligrams of Dr. Preston's testimony about what would have happened if I'd consumed it. Marcus's voice recording of Linda discussing the plan. Text messages between Linda and Gregory planning the conspiracy. The documents found in the conference room, pre-filled and ready for my signature. Testimony from Dr. Michelle Santos about Robert obtaining veterinary drugs under false pretenses. Financial records showing all 4 defendants facing bankruptcy. Research Linda and Gregory had conducted on memory care facilities and involuntary commitment procedures. The timeline found in Gregory's handwriting. 5 o'clock medication administered. 5:30 to 6 o'clock observation period. 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock signing session. 7 o'clock transport to facility. And they presented my grandchildren. Marcus testified first, describing how he'd overheard Linda on the phone, how he'd investigated, and found evidence how he'd made the split-second decision to warn me and get me out of that restaurant. Why did you do it? Ada Franklin asked. Why risk your relationship with your mother? Because my grandmother is a good person who built something real through decades of work? My mother was planning to poison her and steal it. That's not complicated. You protect the people who deserve protection even if the threat comes from your own parent. Cross tried to rattle him. Marcus, isn't it true you've always resented your mother? No, I loved my mother. Past tense. I resented who she became when money got tight, someone willing to hurt her own mother rather than face her own financial failures. Isn't it true you stand to inherit your grandmother's estate now? No, Grandma's estate is structured in a trust that I can't access until I'm 30. I don't get any money from this. All I get is the knowledge that I saved someone I love. Sophia testified about finding the documents on Linda's laptop, the texts between her parents, the spreadsheet calculating property values. I didn't understand what it meant at first, she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. But once Marcus explained what he'd heard, it all made sense. The secret meetings, the weird conversations that stopped when I walked in, the research on nursing homes. They were planning to lock Grandma away. Why did you help Marcus warn your grandmother? Franklin asked. Because it was the right thing to do. Because Grandma's always been there for me. Because I couldn't let my parents hurt her just to solve their money problems. Sophia looked directly at Linda. And because I was raised to believe that character matters more than comfort? Apparently my parents forgot that lesson. Nathan's testimony was the hardest. At 14, he was the youngest, the most vulnerable. Did you know about your parents' plan? Franklin asked gently. No, they kept me completely in the dark. But after Marcus warned Grandma and we went to the hospital, I started remembering things. Dad's mood swings when money was tight. Mom crying about bills. Overhearing them argue about Grandma's properties. I didn't connect it at the time, but looking back, they'd been planning this for months. How do you feel about your parents now? Nathan's voice broke. I don't know. They're still my parents, but they tried to hurt someone I love. They were willing to drug Grandma and lock her away. I don't know how to forgive that. Cross tried to paint Nathan as manipulated by his older cousins. Nathan, isn't it true Marcus and Sophia convinced you to testify against your parents? No. I testified because I saw the evidence. I read the texts. I saw the acepromazine bottle. I heard the phone recording. Nobody had to convince me of anything. The facts speak for themselves. The defense tried to paint Linda and Gregory as desperate parents, making one terrible mistake under extreme financial pressure. It didn't work. Dr. Preston testified about the medical effects of acepromazine. At the dosage found in that wine glass, Mrs. Barrett would have been significantly impaired for 4 to 6 hours. Confused, compliant, and unable to make informed decisions. She would have appeared functional to casual observers, but would have been in no condition to understand complex legal documents or resist suggestions. Could it have killed her? Franklin asked. Potentially, yes. Acepromazine isn't approved for human use. In an elderly patient with any underlying cardiac or respiratory conditions, that dosage could have caused serious complications, including fatal arrhythmia or respiratory arrest. Detective Winters walked the jury through the conspiracy. This wasn't an impulsive act. This was months of planning. Obtaining illegal drugs, arranging lawyers, preparing documents, researching institutional facilities, coordinating timing. The level of premeditation here is extraordinary. In your 22 years as a detective, Franklin asked, how would you characterize this case? This is one of the most calculated cases of elder abuse I've ever investigated. The defendants didn't just want money, they were willing to chemically incapacitate their mother, potentially kill her, and institutionalize her to prevent her from stopping them. The cruelty here is breathtaking. The defense put Linda and Gregory on the stand. It was a disaster. Under cross-examination, Linda fell apart. Mrs. Walsh, when did you first consider drugging your mother? Franklin asked. We weren't trying to hurt her. You put acepromazine in her wine? That's attempting to hurt her. We just needed her to be calm enough to listen. Or 2 signed documents you'd already prepared without her knowledge? Linda went silent. Mrs. Walsh, you researched memory care facilities with lockdown wards. Why? Mom's been having memory problems. Dr. Preston testified that your mother scored a perfect 30 out of 30 on cognitive testing. She has no memory problems. Try again. She's been difficult, refusing reasonable requests. Reasonable requests like giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay off debt you accumulated through irresponsible spending. Linda's face went red. We weren't irresponsible. The economy hour jobs, you and your husband earned $200,000 last year and spent $287,000. That's not the economy. That's irresponsibility. You don't understand the pressure. The pressure to live beyond your means, the pressure to wear designer clothes and drive luxury cars you couldn't afford. Franklin's voice was hard. Mrs. Walsh, did you or did you not plan to drug your mother, get her signature on documents while she was sedated, and transport her to a memory care facility where you would control access to her? Linda was crying. We were desperate. That's not an answer. Yes or no? Yes. Yes. Okay. We planned it, because she was being selfish, and we needed the money, and it seemed like the only way the courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison had to gavel for order. Gregory was worse. He showed no remorse, only anger. Mr. Barrett, why did you participate in this plan to drug your mother? Franklin asked. Because she left us no choice. Gregory's voice was defiant. She's sitting on millions. living like a pauper, refusing to help her own children. We built that wealth. Too, we sacrificed our childhoods while she and Dad built their empire. That money should have been ours. The money your parents earned through their own work should have been yours. We're family. Family helps each other by drugging them. We weren't going to hurt her. Just make her calm enough to sign documents transferring $1.8 million worth of property to you, below market value, while she was chemically impaired and couldn't understand what she was signing. She would have understood if she'd just listened. Mr. Barrett, you researched acetaminophen dosing, you helped plan the timeline, you coordinated with lawyers, and you wrote the note transport to facility. What facility? Gregory's face went white. Mr. Barrett, a memory care center, just temporarily, until she calmed down and accepted that you'd stolen her assets. How long were you planning to keep her there? Silence. Mr. Barrett, how long? As long as it took. Gregory exploded. As long as it took for her to accept reality. She's 68 years old. She doesn't need all that money. We're drowning and she doesn't care. So yes, we were going to take what should have been ours anyway. And if that meant keeping her somewhere safe until the assets were transferred, then that's what we were going to do. The courtroom went absolutely silent. No further questions? Franklin said quietly. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Linda and Robert were convicted of conspiracy to commit elder abuse, attempted poisoning, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted theft. Gregory and Diane were convicted of conspiracy to commit elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping due to the plans to institutionalize me. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Judge Morrison was grim. I've been on the bench for 19 years. I've presided over many elder abuse cases, but I have rarely seen this level of premeditation and callousness. These defendants didn't just want money. They were willing to poison their mother and mother-in-law. They were willing to risk her life. They were willing to have her institutionalized against her will to prevent her from stopping them. And even in this courtroom, they've shown no genuine remorselessly anger that their plan failed. She looked at Gregory with cold eyes. Mr. Barrett, your testimony revealed the truth. You believe your mother's assets should have been yours. You believe she should have funded your irresponsible lifestyle. You believe her refusal to do so justified drugging her, stealing from her, and locking her away. That sense of entitlement, that view of elderly parents as obstacles to be removed, is exactly what this court will not tolerate. Linda Walsh, 14 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 9. Robert Walsh, 12 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 8. Gregory Barrett, 15 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 10. Diane Barrett, 10 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 7. Additionally, permanent restraining orders preventing any contact with me or my grandchildren, restitution of $420,000. To cover my legal fees, security expenses, and damages all 4 permanently banned from working in healthcare, legal, or financial services. Professional licenses revoked for Linda Marketing and Gregory Financial Advising. As the sentences were read, Linda screamed. Robert put his head in his hands. Diane sobbed. Gregory stared at me with pure hatred. This is your fault, he shouted as officers led him away. You could have just helped us. You could have shared. Instead, you destroyed your own family over money. I hope you're happy. I didn't destroy this family. I said clearly you did. The moment you decided to drug me rather than live within your means, we walked out of that courtroom into a wall of reporters. The case had made national news. The wealthy widow whose children tried to drug her, stopped only by her grandson's warning. I gave one statement. My children tried to poison me to steal assets I spent 42 years building with my late husband. They were willing to risk my life, institutionalize me, and destroy me to get money they never earned. Today, justice was served. I hope this case reminds people that our elderly parents and grandparents are not obstacles to our inheritance. They're human beings with rights, dignity, and the absolute authority to control their own lives. Thank you. 2 years have passed since that sentencing. I'm 70 now, and my life looks nothing like it did before that Thanksgiving dinner. Marcus is 21 now, enrolled at Portland State, studying business management while working for me 30 hours a week. He's exceptional at property management firm with problem tenants, fair with good ones, detail-oriented with finances. He's taken over day-to-day operations of 12 of the properties. Sophia graduated high school with honors and started at University of Oregon studying real estate and finance. She works for me during summers and breaks, learning every aspect of the business. Nathan is 16, a junior in high school, already taking college-level courses. He wants to study architecture, maybe specialize in residential renovation. He spends weekends helping with property maintenance, learning the hands-on skills his grandfather valued. Together, we've grown the portfolio to 26 properties worth approximately $3.2 million. The business generates about $58,000 a month in rental income after expenses. I've set up a new estate structure. The properties are in an irrevocable trust managed by my attorney Richard Morrison until Marcus turns 30. The 3 grandchildren are equal beneficiaries. Linda, Gregory, Robert, and Diane are explicitly and permanently excluded, with detailed documentation of why. This is bulletproof, Richard assured me. They can't challenge it. You have medical documentation of full competency. You have clear reasons for disinheritance, their criminal convictions, and you have 3 beneficiaries who demonstrably saved your life, not manipulated you. The 3 of them have moved in with me permanently. My house is louder now, fuller, chaotic in the best way. Marcus makes breakfast. Sophia does most of the cooking. Nathan handles yard work and minor repairs. We have family dinners every night. Sometimes we invite Richard and his wife, or Detective Winters and her family, or Dr. Preston. We've built a chosen family of people who proved themselves when it mattered. Linda has written me 147 letters from prison. I've read 3 of them. The first 2 were full of justifications and excuses. The third, written 18 months into her sentence, was different. Mom, I finally understand what I did. Not just the crime through betrayal. You were my mother. You loved me, raised me, never abused me or neglected me. And I repaid that by trying to poison you. I can't believe I was that person. I can't believe I let desperation turn me into someone who'd hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I finally see what I did and I'm horrified. I showed it to the kids. Should I respond? That's up to you, Marcus said carefully. But Grandma, even if she's sincere now, she still did it. She still planned to drug you and lock you away. I don't think sorry erases that. Nothing erases it, I agreed. But people can change. The question is whether she's actually changed or just learned what to say to sound changed. I wrote back 1 letter. Linda, I appreciate your apology. I believe you're experiencing genuine remorse. But remorse doesn't undo what you did, and it doesn't erase the fact that you were willing to risk my life for money. I'm glad you're getting help in prison. I hope you become someone better. But I won't have a relationship with you when you're released. The trust is too broken. I wish you healing and growth, but from a distance, Mom, Gregory has never apologized. According to prison records, he's accumulated multiple infractions fighting, refusing programming, verbally abusing staff. His behavior has pushed his first parole eligibility back by 2 years. He still thinks he was justified, Marcus says. Still thinks you were selfish and he was owed that money. Some people never learn, I say. Your Uncle Gregory is one of them. Robert and Diane have taken different paths. Robert works in the prison library, takes classes, seems to be genuinely trying to rehabilitate. Diane has completed victim empathy programs and financial literacy courses. Sophia gets letters from her father. She reads them now, though she doesn't respond. Dad says he's sorry, she told me recently. Says he was following Mom's lead, but that's no excuse. Says he thinks about what they almost did to you every day and feels sick. I don't know if I believe him, but I don't hate him anymore. I just feel sad. That's healthy, I told her. Hate takes too much energy. Sadness is just grief for what should have been but wasn't. The business thrives. We've specialized in affordable housing, buying older buildings and renovating them into quality apartments for working families. It's more work but more meaningful. Like Grandpa Thomas did, Marcus says. Building something that matters, not just something profitable. Nathan is designing energy-efficient renovation plans, blending old construction with modern sustainability. Grandpa would love this, he says, studying original woodwork in a 1920s building we're restoring. Quality materials, solid craftsmanship. They build things to last. Last month, Linda's first parole hearing was scheduled. She was denied. The parole board cited the severity of the crime and her daughter. Sophia's statement. My mother tried to poison my grandmother for money. While I appreciate that she's expressed remorse, that doesn't change what she was willing to do. My grandmother is 70 years old and thriving. She runs a real estate business, mentors her grandchildren, and lives fully. My mother wanted to take that from her, wanted to drug her, institutionalize her, and steal everything she built. I don't believe 10 years is enough time to truly rehabilitate from that level of cruelty. I asked the board to deny parole. The board agreed. Linda will be eligible again in 2 years. Gregory doesn't even qualify for parole yet due to his infractions. Thomas's picture still sits on the mantel. I talk to it often. You were right about them, I tell the photo. About Linda and Gregory, you saw the entitlement growing and warned me. I should have listened sooner. But I also tell him about the grandchildren. These 3, Thomas, they're what we hoped our kids would be. They're carrying forward what we built, not the money, but the values, the integrity, the work ethic. The belief that character matters more than comfort. Last week, on the 2-year anniversary of that Thanksgiving, we held our own celebration. Just the 4 of us, me, Marcus, Sophia, and Nathan at home, cooking together, giving thanks for what actually matters. To Grandma, Marcus said, raising his glass, who taught us that real wealth isn't what you have. It's who you are and what you stand for. To Grandpa Thomas, Sophia added, who built something real and taught us to value what matters. To family, Nathan said, not the family we're born into, but the family we choose. The people who protect us when it's hard. 2 second chances, I said. Not for the people who tried to destroy us, but for us. The chance to build something better, something stronger, with people who actually deserve our trust and love. We clinked glasses. This time I could drink without fear. 2 years ago, my children tried to drug me at a Thanksgiving dinner, planning to steal everything, Thomas, and I had built and locked me away to prevent me from fighting back. Today, I'm alive, healthy, in full control of my assets, surrounded by grandchildren who chose integrity over family loyalty. Linda, Gregory, Robert, and Diane are in prison, facing years more of consequences for their choices. And Marcus, Sophia, and Nathan are here, learning the business, building their own character, carrying forward a legacy that has nothing to do with money and everything to do with values. Sometimes the good guys win. Sometimes justice actually happens. Sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up destroying only themselves. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes the next generation rises above the failures of the one before. Stronger, wiser, more committed to doing right even when it costs everything. 3 weeks ago, Marcus closed his first independent property deal. Small duplex he'll manage himself. Sophia has been accepted into a competitive real estate development program at U of O. Nathan won a state architecture competition for his design of sustainable, affordable housing. You've taught us everything, Marcus said at Sunday dinner last week. No, I corrected. I've taught you what I could, but who you are, the courage to stand up to your parents, the integrity to choose right over easy, the strength to rebuild after loss, that's all you. We learned it from you, Sophia insisted, and from Grandpa you showed us what matters. And what matters? I asked, testing them. Character, Nathan said immediately. Integrity. Work, building something real instead of just taking what others built. And protecting the people who deserve protection, Marcus added, even when it costs everything. I looked at these 3 young people, 21, 19, and 16, who'd sacrificed their relationships with their parents to save me, who'd stood in courtrooms and faced down their own family, who'd chosen truth over comfort, integrity over convenience. Thomas would have been so proud. I am so proud. You know what the best part is? Sophia asked. Mom and Dad thought they were taking everything from you, but they gave you something instead. Us. Without their betrayal, we might have stayed distant, might have only visited on holidays, might have never really understood what you and Grandpa built. But now we're here. Now we're learning. Now we're carrying it forward. They tried to destroy your legacy, Nathan said. Instead, they guaranteed it would continue. He was right. My children's betrayal had backfired spectacularly. In trying to steal my assets, they'd driven away the only people who might actually have deserved them someday. And they'd pushed those people straight to me, into my life, into my business, into my heart. Sometimes, I said softly, the universe has a sense of justice we can't see in the moment. Your parents thought they were so smart, planning everything so carefully, but they never considered that you might choose differently, that you might value integrity more than family peace, that you might actually protect me instead of helping them. Of course we protected you, Marcus said. Your grandma, you've always been there for us. You taught us what really matters. How could we not? How indeed? We finished dinner and cleaned up together, the 4 of us moving around my kitchen with easy familiarity. Thomas's kitchen, the kitchen where he and I had planned our first property purchase, celebrated every milestone, dreamed about the future we're living now, but not with the children we'd imagined. With grandchildren who proved themselves worthy of everything we built. Outside, Portland sparkled in the evening light. 26 properties spread across the city, representing decades of work, integrity, and values that matter more than money. And here, in this kitchen, for people who understand that legacy, who are carrying it forward, who chose to stand with me when standing with me cost them everything. That's the real inheritance. Not millions in real estate, but character forged in fire, integrity tested and proven. Values strong enough to withstand betrayal. Linda and Gregory will get out of prison someday. They'll be older, poorer, stripped of everything they valued. Maybe they'll have learned something. Probably they won't. But either way, they'll discover the world moved on without them. That the mother they tried to destroy thrived. That the inheritance they tried to steal went to people who actually earned it. And maybe, just maybe, they finally understand what Thomas always tried to teach them. You don't build wealth by taking it from others. You build it through work, through integrity, through values that outlast any bank account. Some lessons cost everything to learn. I'm grateful I survived to see them learn it. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Would you have been able to prosecute your own children, knowing it meant they'd spend years in prison? Could you have cut them out of your estate completely, even after they apologized? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.